to check in a lot because I feel a little uncomfortable telling this story, if that's all right. Do you guys believe in destiny?
No.
Yeah, I don't know if I do, but David Foster Wallace, who is an author who people who want to appear intelligent reference often, he once said that nothing ever important happens because we try to engineer it. He says that destiny is always kind of in a trench coat, leaning out of an alley, whispering, psst. But we're usually too busy to hear it because we're on our way to or from something that we tried to engineer. So let's keep that in mind as the story goes on. I want to tell you a joke, an old joke that also might be a metaphor. So there's this executive who works in a skyscraper downtown on the top floor. And he's highly successful, but he has this really weird habit of every time someone walks into his office, he snaps several times. And one day, a curious employee asks him, he says, why do you do that every time someone walks in? And he says, to keep the lions and tigers and bears away. And his employee says, we're in the middle of Center City, Philadelphia, we're on the top floor of a skyscraper, there's no lions and tigers and bears. And he says, see, it's working. I don't know when I began obsessively washing my hands, but I do know that every time I did it, I would count to 15. And just about after every time I got done, I would think to myself, well, there was at least a couple of seconds that I skipped on, so do it again. And I'd go back and I'd do it again, and I'd think the same thing, and I'd walk away. And this time I'd start to think, well, if you don't go back, you're going to get everyone sick. So I'd go back and I'd do it again. And I'd walk away, and this time I'd think, well, now you want to get everyone sick because you're skipping on purpose. And somewhere along the way, I also started to get this thing in my head that I had to end on the number 7. So it'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'd get to 15, and then I'd say 7. But it had to be a good 7. So more often than not, I would wash my hands, and it wouldn't be a good 7, or I'd feel like I hadn't done it enough times. So I'd usually try to end on the number 7, the 7th time washing my hands. Does this make any sense?
Yes.
Yeah, a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not the only kind of thing that I thought obsessively about and sort of superstitiously tried to fight off. But it's probably the most stereotypical. So it got to the point my sophomore year in college where I couldn't take it anymore. And I started to kind of give up control of this idea, and I went to the counselor at the counseling center at my college. He gave me a book. And as soon as I gave up control, I started to kind of hear Destiny's whisper. And the book that he gave me was by the #1 expert in the world on the treatment of OCD. And this seems to me like destiny. The #1 expert in the world for the treatment of OCD resided at the University of Pennsylvania. I emailed her, and she emailed me back. I was a little bit starstruck at first. She told me to come in, so I went in. And I quickly found out, as often happens with insurance, that my insurance didn't cover it. And being the #1 center in the world for the treatment of this condition, the cost was prohibitive. However, it just so happened that I was able to enter into a research study and get complete treatment, because at this particular point in time, they were doing a study and I got free treatment. So I entered this study with a score of 24 out of 40 on the Yale-Brown Obsessive-Compulsive Scale, which meant I was somewhere between moderate to moderately severe. The first thing my therapist told me that I couldn't do for the next 3 months, outside of daily showers, was wash my hands at all. Now there's lots of moments where a regular person feels the need to wash their hands. And after going to the bathroom, it was really, really hard for me not to do that. It was really hard for me not to count. But eventually, it got easier. And I was able to do it. When I left the study and I took the Yale-Brown Obsessive Compulsive Scale test again, I scored an 11. Which means that had I gone into the study then, I wouldn't have even been accepted because the symptoms were so unrecognizable. So now, metaphorically speaking, when someone walks into my office, I can greet them and not snap. Thank you.